books. So it's official. They're married. This morning, what we're going to do live, because I just now finally, boy, I had to dig for this, found the, as close as we're going to get it, official time that Harry and Meghan said, I do. So just a couple of things. So here's the thing, right? There are, how many different ways can we slice an onion? So there are a couple of different ways. I'm all kinds of all over the place right now. Sorry. All right. So there are a number of different ways to look at a relationship and determine the success of a relationship. And the first thing I need you guys to understand is that obviously you already know this part. Relationships are not easy. The second thing is the success of a relationship, because a relationship is a partnership. It's no different than a business relationship or a teacher-student relationship or a parent-child relationship. In order for a relationship to be successful, both parties have to understand what the nature of this relationship is and what purpose it is intended to serve. That is the definition of success. So, for instance, if you have a student-teacher relationship, the purpose of this relationship is the education of the student and the ability to get the student to advance in their understanding and awareness of more complex things. And the teacher's role in this relationship is to assist and facilitate that process. The student's role is to absorb and participate in this process and allow themselves to grow with that so they can step up to that level. If the student or the teacher do not meet their obligations in this relationship or attempt to do things that are not in that relationship, right? So for example, in a student-teacher relationship, this is not a romantic relationship. So attempting a romantic pursuit in the context of student-teacher relationship does not make this a successful student-teacher relationship. It's actually wildly inappropriate, right? But at the end of the day, it did not fulfill its obligation and purpose. So that is the nature of relationships. So there are relationships on a personal level, romantically. There are relationships in our lives that are intended to inspire us and keep us uplifted and give us a chance to experience some pleasure and experience what it feels like to be ourselves and to be adored for being ourselves in one way or another, through the eyes of somebody else. And there are other relationships that are specifically there, intended to help us grow, to challenge us, to force us to find our boundaries and to establish our self-worth independent of somebody else's opinion, and to become strong and more self-loving in the absence of another's love. Okay. And there are relationships that are there that are supposed to be for the long haul. Now, when we start talking about the long haul, like marriage, right, and life partnerships, then it becomes, what is the purpose of this relationship? Are we trying to have a family and have kids? Are we here because we're trying to be more successful in our professional endeavors and we need a helpmeet who's going to understand that career and profession is everything? Or do we need a partner who is a friend, our best friend, because we need someone who's going to participate with us in our growth and our experience of the world out there, not necessarily focused on having a family and raising kids, or pursuing professional and social achievements. So, when we talk about relationships, it gets a little complicated because relationships, just like people, are not one size fits all. So every relationship has a purpose, even the bad ones. As much as I hate to admit it, honestly, even the bad ones. And ultimately, in order for them to be successful, we need to know what their purpose is, and everybody has to be on the same page with it. So here's the deal. Today, because I just finally found as close as we're going to get it, the time that they said, I do, between Harry and Meghan. And this is probably one of the most publicized weddings ever, right? Really good stuff. Big symbol of paradigm shifts socially and culturally, which is good. And it's an interesting chart. I don't think that Meghan is going to fare well in this marriage. Harry benefits a lot from this marriage. I covered this in another video. But Harry benefits tremendously from this marriage. And I'm not completely sure how that works for him, but he gets it. This being married right now, and this marriage is so good for him on so many levels, not just personally. Meghan, on the other hand, is not going to do as well. I believe that this marriage is going to be extremely stifling for her, and a very awkward fit. And a whole lot of other stuff. But there are some, if you buy into karma, there are some karmic payoffs here. and some life lessons and all sort of stuff. And who invited Chelsea Davies? Like, so before we get into the chart, I just want to say I saw the thing that Chelsea Davies, Harry's ex-girlfriend, on and off for 7 years, was invited to the wedding. Who invited the ex-girlfriend of the groom to the wedding? Like, who does that? Oh my God. So at first, I was like, wow, do they hate Meghan that much that they would invite this woman? Like, what is that about? And then I realized, you know what? Meghan's getting what she wants. Meghan is at the top, like literally the front of the aisle, getting her ring. So this is not going to bother, shade or no shade, this isn't going to bother Meghan. You know what this was? This was a slap in the face to Chelsea, because this was, there's no way to politely decline an invitation unless somebody's dying or you're dying, right? So she had to go. So this was literally, somebody doesn't like Chelsea, and this was the big slap in the face. 7 years on and off being his booty call. Guess what? You lose. She got him. Like, that's what that was about. That was so mean. Oh my God. Who hates Chelsea Davis that much to do that to her? Woo. Anyway, so let's get on with the chart. So there are, because there are different types of relationships, there are also different ways of looking at a relationship and the people in it. And there are a couple, when we look at compatibility, it's not as simple as chart A and chart B. There's a lot more going on. So typically you have the synastry, or the two chart comparisons, and then you have and then you're translating back and forth how this relationship or this person impacts the other. Then there's the relationship chart, and they usually call it a composite chart. There's also a Davison relationship chart. There's a couple different ways to do a composite chart or relationship chart. And as if this wasn't enough work and you weren't confused enough, right? Then there's the marriage chart, or the wedding chart. So the synastry will tell you how you and another person impact each other. This is not specific to a type of relationship. It's literally just the two of you, your temperaments and personalities, the things, your hot buttons. These are the things, how you interact with each other, regardless of the relationship that you're having, right? And a composite chart is the relationship itself, because once you officially come together with somebody in some type of relationship, defined by what your priorities and needs are for this relationship, the relationship itself becomes a third entity. Okay. So the thing about it is, one of the things that we know in a relationship is you can be in a relationship with somebody, or wait, let me rephrase that. Let me use other people as an example, right? Like, we all know these people, like, we've known them for years, they're fine, and blah, blah, blah. The relationship ends, and suddenly we're hearing all these stories about what a horrible person they are, and they did this, and they did that, and da-da-da. And we're like, who is this person? Like, this is not the person I knew. So the thing about it is, relationships bring out different parts of ourselves. It's perfectly, completely possible for you to be one person, obviously, with your parents, and another person with your kids, and another person with your friends, and another person at work, and still a different person at home with your spouse or your partner. I mean, obviously, unless you're schizophrenic or have multiple personality disorder, there should be some continuity between these personalities. But ultimately, the dominant parts of your personality that you're drawn forth to find expression in these relationships are different, because you take on different roles. You have to be a different person. So when we look at a composite chart, we're combining the two charts together, and now we're looking at the relationship itself, and how easily do we integrate these personality and temperaments into a vehicle of relationship? How easy is it to navigate this relationship, right? So there's that. And the more intensely and intimately that you are spending time together, right? So a marriage versus a friendship, okay? The more strong that... Oh my God. Hey. Okay, sorry. Gremlins. We have gremlins today. Okay, so where was I? Right. So when you set up a chart, there's the time the ceremonies officially begin, right? So that should tell you whether this is actually going to get to the part where they say I do, or if the ground is going to open up and swallow everybody and prevent this from happening. The moment that they're pronounced man and wife, or husband and husband, or wife and wife, or husband, wife and wife, whatever your pronouns are in your wedding ceremony, the moment that happens and it's official, that's actually the time we use for the marriage chart. So in this chart, we have Virgo rising. We have 3 degrees Virgo rising with 24 Taurus on the midheaven. And we have 3 Pisces on 7th house. So in this chart, Mercury and Neptune slash Jupiter, because Jupiter is co-ruler of Pisces. So these become very important factors in examining the marriage, and the success of the marriage. The moon is also a very critical component of a marriage chart, because the moon shows us a lot about how successful they are or will be in terms of getting along domestically. Anybody who's ever been married can tell you, unless you own 2 houses and you live in separate houses, it's kind of important to get along domestically. So domestic felicity is shown by the moon, because your moon is your everyday environment. And it's also the most personal planet in the constellation. So we put a lot of weight on it. Okay. So let's begin. Let's just go ahead and jump in the chart. Okay. All right. So the first thing that we're going to notice with this chart is that with 3 Virgo rising and 24 Taurus in the midheaven, the sun at 28 Taurus is at the very top of the chart. So the sun typically rules the dominant or solar partner in the relationship. In heterosexual relationships, we typically assume that this is the man, because it's a masculine expression. In non-heteronormative relationships, it is whoever the solar or masculine or dominant partner is, the face of the relationship. At 28 Taurus on the midheaven. So the first thing is, this is a very public, very visible, very important proceeding, right? So that because the sun at the top of a chart puts a tremendous amount of social visibility and importance, gravity to the event. So this is a very, very big deal. Obviously, it's a royal wedding, but even if it weren't a royal wedding, the sun at the top of the chart gives the marriage itself a lot more gravitas. Okay, so things to know. All right, now here's the thing. So there's been a lot of speculation back and forth about, oh my God, is this marriage going to survive? And, is she really in it for, him, or, is he blindsided, blah, blah, blah. And I'll tell you, I think he's a little love struck. I do. I think he's a little love struck. But after looking at Harry's chart, one of the things we also know is that Harry is an 8th houser. Oh, he's a powerhouse. Don't you kid yourself. So one, just as a sidebar, I don't buy any of this public relations fairy tale nonsense about this being a blind date. They had no idea, and he had no idea who she was. No, please. The man is an 8th houser. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and he's got all, I've got his chart in another video, but he's a powerhouse. And this is not somebody going to walk blindly into any blind date. He knew who she was before he showed up. Believe it. So him physically showing up for that first date was just to see if there was chemistry. Okay. So with that said, there's, outside of that, there's a lot of speculation about, I don't know, is this marriage going to last? And, And there's just, because it flies in the face of convention in so many levels. And yay, Ms. Markle is a feminist. And Harry is apparently a feminist supporter. So take that, you bunch of Neanderthals living in caves. Okay, jeez Louise. And for the record, folks, there is a difference between a radical feminist and a sane, reasonable feminist and a sex-positive feminist. We're not all running around letting our armpits and our legs grow out hairy and, trying to move to a commune where there's no men, and we're totally against anything that smacks of, sexual happiness. So anyway, she's a feminist. He's a feminist supporter. Yay! Oh, and on top of everything else, right? So that sun at the top of the chart at 28 degrees indicates typically that there's a really short window of time before everything changes, right? So normally when we look at we don't like late degrees in a chart, because late degrees in a chart always heralds impending change in the very immediate future, right? And, I like Meghan Markle and I love Prince Harry, love that chart. And I want them to be happy, and I want them to be the face of a new generation in the future, because you guys that are going to be here after I'm gone, you need better things, right? You need certainly better role models than the one we got now. And I like these two, and I like what they're presenting right now. So I want them to have long-term success. I don't want things to go bad. However, the sun is at 28 Taurus, and the sun in a chart typically represents the man. So we're looking at 2 years. We're looking at about 2 years, give or take a couple of months on either side of that, before something about Harry or Harry's role in this marriage changes. Now, there's been a lot of speculation also about Harry having a bit of a wandering eye. And I'm not going to say that he does. I mean, he's got a moon in Taurus. He's an 8th house with moon in Taurus. He's very stable. So once he's committed, he's committed. But For whatever reason, these two coming together is just raising all kinds of ire, and jealousy and envy, and a whole lot of people who are trying to, poke the bear, as it were. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some stuff that comes up that really kind of, shakes things as they get on into their marriage, and very, very quickly. So in the first couple of years, we're looking at some major stuff. The moon is the other side of this. So the moon is the lunar or softer side of a marriage chart, right? So when you're looking at a marriage chart between two partners, the sun represents typically the masculine partner or the dominant partner, not necessarily the man if you're not in a heterosexual relationship. And the moon would represent the feminine partner, or the helpmeet, the helper, the supportive partner. Because typically in a partnership, in any partnership, you can't have two leaders. You can't have all Indian chiefs and no Indians. So there's always the one who takes the lead, and handles the big stuff and makes the critical decisions and is the final arbiter on things, the final decision maker. And then the other one is the support partner, whose primary responsibility is to be the glue that holds everything together. So they're the ones who make things work, right? And it's not that literal, but you get the idea, right? So you have to have the front and the back, like on a caboose. So the moon is the feminine partner, or the supportive partner. If it's a heterosexual relationship, it would be represented as the woman. If it's not a heterosexual relationship, it would be the feminine or supportive helpmeet partner, right? We want the sun and the moon to be in very positive relationship with each other, because this has everything to do with how well these two people inside the vehicle of this particular marriage will integrate and work together, like cogs that intersect and operate smoothly. So those of you who have ever been married, or are old enough to know other people who've been married and divorced, that you can have two people who love each other madly, and some people are compatible in every way, have lived together for years, had no problems. And the minute they get married, everything falls apart, right? Suddenly they get divorced in a year and never speak to each other again. Because marriage really does change everything. So we want in a marriage chart that sun and that moon to have a good, strong, positive relationship with each other, to make marriage as easy as possible for the people involved. In this particular case, the sun and the moon are both sextile each other, which is a strong, positive relationship. And the moon is applying to the sun. It's not past it yet. So there's still the opportunity for growth and really cementing or establishing a relationship. If the moon had been a degree past the sun, so if the sun, for instance, is at 20 and the moon is at 21, the moon is faster than the sun. The moon is already, in that case, the moon would have passed the sun, and essentially everything is dying. Like there's nowhere to go with this, right? That is not the case here. That is not the case here. So this is very promising. The other thing is that the moon is very strong in its own sign of Cancer. And this is very important, and it's in the 11th house. So the moon, if it represents Meghan, which we assume that it does because they are heterosexual, unless Harry is a woman and we don't know about it. So the moon in Cancer, the wife in this particular marriage, in this royal marriage, holds her own and has very, very strong, charismatic support from the people around her. And it's in the 11th house, which is the house of the people. It's an air house. Aquarius is an air house, but Aquarius is very much about groups at large. So Meghan will have tremendous support and popularity with the common people, but not the common people like in the local area. Like Diana had a lot of support globally, but primarily, especially with the Londoners. The 11th house has more to do with global appeal, and the appeal of people we've never even met. So Meghan will be very, very visible in this marriage, as these things go. So now the other thing that we look at in terms of how will they get along? How will this marriage function? Will it be easy? Will it be difficult? Where are the problems in this, relationship? Success indicators for the relationship. We always keep the moon in mind, because the moon, again, remembers domestic harmony, and marriage has to have domestic harmony. If you don't have domestic harmony in a marriage, you cannot have a marriage. Ask anybody who's ever been married. So the moon, here's the most beautiful, promising thing in this chart. Oh my God. The moon is part of a grand trine in water. So the moon trines Neptune in the 7th house, which is the 7th house ruler of relationships and also one of the parties in the marriage. And it's also trine Jupiter in Scorpio, down or close to that 4th house, but definitely on the 3rd house side. and the moon itself is in the 11th. So one of the things that will make, because these are air houses, one of the things that's going to make this marriage very, very successful and easy for them to be in terms of domestic bliss, is because these are air houses, these are communication houses, these are mental houses, is their ability to communicate with each other on a very, very deep level in a very easy way. So their ability to talk to each other and be frank and honest and comfortable and share with each other things that they would never share with other people, and know, because it's a grand trine, that they're supported and accepted and received by their partner, is going to go huge lengths in terms of keeping this marriage easy, and functional, between them. So I'm very excited about that. Now, some other little things we're going to look at real quick. So Mercury rules the first house, Neptune rules the 7th. They're kind of in a sextile. It's a little wide, honestly, and I like them tight, so it's a little wide, but it's still a sextile, and we'll take it. So that's good. So that means the first and 7th house, the two partners, come together easily, and function like in a lockstep formation much easier. We're good with that. The other side of that would be Jupiter. If we use the co-ruler Jupiter for that 7th house, Mercury opposing Jupiter, retrograde in Scorpio in the 3rd, means that one of these partners has some skeletons in their closet that are going to come tumbling out probably in about, I'm going to say like 8 years. I don't think 8 months. I think it's going to be like 8 years. And they, I'm sure, will have a lot to do with sex or power or politics or all of the above. But certainly because Jupiter is in Scorpio, and it's Taurus, Mercury's in Taurus, there's a grudge here. So I would look for some type of scandal involving one of their histories and some skeletons in their closet, like huge skeletons coming out within the first 8 years of the marriage. And certainly maybe 8 weeks or 8 months or 8 weeks or 8 days. But there's some stuff there. And the thing about it is, because Jupiter's in Scorpio and it's retrograde, it's hidden very well. But the other is that Scorpio is such a vindictive sign, and Taurus loves to hold grudges. So I wouldn't be surprised, not one bit, when the stops come out, if with a little bit more digging, we find out that this is really just a vindictiveness on the person's part that's revealing it. And it may not all be as accurate or whole information as they're presenting it. So there's definitely some revenge motivation when this happens. Oh, sorry. No such. Here we go again. Okay. Now, with Mercury in wide conjunction to Uranus, in the 9th house, there is more forward, progressive thinking involved. Now, typically people say with Uranus, it's, strangers or unexpected people and stuff like that. And on first glance, we would say that that's got to be Meghan that's represented by this. But I'm not completely sure, because the first house typically has to do with people in their own location, in their home base, right? So for like sports teams, we would use the first house for the home team. So I would say the first house, or Virgo rising, would be Harry. And that is Mercury, and Mercury is conjunct Uranus. So and again, it's like the 8 to 9 mark. So 8 to 9 years. This is probably skeletons coming out of Harry's closet. Although I don't know how on earth anybody would get away with revealing that without having MI5 showing up on their door. So Mercury and Uranus, it's a wide conjunction. So this is not about shock value per se, but this is definitely, there are other things afoot, and there's some forward thinking, progressive stuff behind this. And Mercury and Uranus, now we're getting into the kids, right, are trining that 5th house, Saturn. And Mercury is just moving away from it. So Mercury moving away from Saturn, which sits in the 5th house, a couple of interesting things here. So Capricorn is on the 5th house, and Capricorn by itself on the 5th typically limits the number of children that will be produced inside of a marriage. Doesn't mean you won't have them, but it will limit them. Saturn in the 5th, regardless of what sign is on the 5th, also limits the number of children that a marriage will produce. Or it could present real issues or challenges around pregnancy and childbirth and reproduction inside a marriage. They have Capricorn on the 5th and Saturn in the 5th. So there's going to be some issues here as far as making babies. Now, it is trining Harry, Saturn, and Mercury. His ruler in the marriage chart is just because his Mercury's at 9, the ruling him. Saturn, which rules children, is at 8. So Mercury has just moved past that Saturn. So this is not a new issue. This is something that Harry has dealt with recently or before, and this could be Meghan we're looking at, but I think it's Harry. But certainly with one of them. There's an issue with childbirth and pregnancy that's literally just happened. I'm not completely sure she wasn't pregnant or had a pregnancy scare just recently. And that's what prompted this sudden, like, oh my God, we got to get married. Not because she's pregnant or they thought she was pregnant. Oh my God, we got to get married. I think it's because she may have had a pregnancy scare. She may have had a miscarriage. Saturn in retrograde in the 5th, certainly could indicate a potential miscarriage. And also Pluto and Mars are down there as well. Mars with a vertex. So she may have been pregnant and miscarried. And this, of course, prompted the whole thing about, oh my God, our future, and what are we doing? And I think I really want to have kids. And I think I really want to have kids with you, miscarriages with unexpected pregnancies will definitely draw people in to have those conversations. Now, here's the problem with Saturn retrograde ruling the 5th in the 5th. Not only is this going to limit the number of children that they have, and I'm not going to say it's going to prevent them from having children, especially not in these days with all of the modern miracles we have in medicine. But what I will say is that there will definitely be some problems with pregnancy and childbirth. This will not be easy. And there may be more than a few issues with that. Now, Pluto is also in that 5th house, and again, it is also trining the sun. And again, I've said this before in Harry's chart. I really think that there might be some congenital or genetic issues that are being passed through him that would show up in his offspring. But we'll see. I don't wish that on anybody. But if I am correct, this is what we're going to see with their first pregnancy. With Mars in Aquarius in that 5th house also. So Mars is squaring Mercury and Uranus. It is part of that Mars-Uranus squaring. We've talked all about that with Uranus's ingress into Taurus. And it's in the 5th. So there are a number of things that this represents in terms of the relationship. Here's Tristan Cancer. Okay. So, 1, Mars conjunct vertex in the 5th, children that come into this world, if first child would be a boy child, I would bet you money the first child would be a boy child, are fated or meant to be here. So everything that comes with this child is going to be something they're intended by karmic obligation to deal with. So for whatever reason, this is their karmic cross to bear. The other thing was Mars squaring Uranus, and certainly, Mercury's past that, but certainly Mars squaring Uranus. And Uranus rules that 6th house. Again, it's health issues. So there's all kinds of problems with reproduction and pregnancy. The other side of this, of course, is it could be that one of the partners has a bit of and again, we're back to this business with a wandering eye. But I don't know that it's necessarily a wandering eye as much as it is things that just won't die. Like Chelsea Davies not knowing that she shouldn't show up to the wedding of her ex-boyfriend. So I think Chelsea may be a bit of a problem in this relationship. That will be interesting to see how that plays out, because Mars in the 5th house is a bit of a troublemaker, squaring Uranus, which rules the 6th house, but Uranus is in the 9th, and it's blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Chelsea Davies, the ex-girlfriend of the prince, may be the problem here. She may be the flying ointment where this marriage is concerned. Because if that is the case, there will be a very compulsive quality. It makes it very difficult for him to leave her alone. Okay. I hope that's not the case. But, she showed up at his wedding. Like, what the hell is that about? Anyway, all right. Now, the other thing that's very notable about this chart is that they have Venus, which rules relationships and aesthetics and pleasure and things that we enjoy doing with each other, at 2956 Gemini within 4 months of this marriage. So we're May, June, July, August, September. So by fall, which coincides with the time we're all looking at to get out of this window of this nonsense that this Uranus ingress brought with it. You'll hear a couple of astrologers, only a couple I've heard so far, that are really good, that I like, that talk about this window in the summer. And I agree with them. We just got to get through the summer. And I said this before when we talked about Uranus going in Taurus and all this and at the beginning of the year, we've just got to get through the summer. When we get to fall, everything changes and it's going to be a lot easier and better. Right? So this thing, whatever this thing is that they're dealing with in their marriage, come September is when the playing field changes and all this stuff's kind of out in the open, right? And everything's different. So it will be interesting to see what this is, and it's right in time with what we're looking at for this tumultuous summer. And it's not so much tumultuous. I mean, it's just been a tumultuous past year or so with, you know, the orangutan in office over here in the United States. He's not doing anybody any favors. But this summer is going to be more hard to predict and unstable, and we're all just kind of, you know, nail biters, kind of trying to get through as best we can. Now, Venus in the marriage chart does rule the third house of communications, information, documents, all photographs, things of that nature. And it also rules the 10th house of public position and standing. So whatever this thing is that's going to pop up in September is going to be very, very public and very visible. Ooh, and it's in the 11th house, so nobody's going to see this coming. It will literally come out of left field or out of the blue. Nobody will have been prepared for this one. And it will have everything to do with documents and communication and photographs and things of that nature, like man on the street sort of stuff, gossip. Third house is gossip. So, and this takes us right back to this thing about Jupiter and Scorpio. Remember I was saying Jupiter and Scorpio and Mercury, there's some skeletons in a closet somewhere. They're going to come popping out. So I was giving that 8 years, but come September, we might get a little bit of a whistle blow on what this is. Or there may be two separate things, but closely related because of the nature of the scandal involved. Or it could be a pregnancy. So we might find a pregnancy coming up in September, or an announcement of a pregnancy in September. I don't know that she'll become pregnant in September. She might be pregnant now, if you want the truth. Because this moves fast. This moves fast. And I'm not completely sure it wasn't a pregnancy scare that drove this marriage to like happen this quickly. Especially given we would have all probably had better times to set up a wedding chart. So she may be pregnant now. We may hear about it later. So it will be interesting to see if that is the case, like what kind of ambiguous time frame they give for her conception. Okay, so when we're looking at a marriage chart, other things that we're looking at is obviously Mars is the zazazoom in a marriage. Mars in the 5th house would indicate, well, we can't take it alone. So Mars in the 5th, what aspects does Mars in the 5th make? It makes a square to Uranus. Sorry. An out of sign opposition to the moon and an out of sign trine to the sun. So in the marriage, some things that we can expect some very creative, entertaining expressions of marital felicity between them. But it is an out of sign trine to the sun, and it is an out of sign square or opposition to the moon. So they may not always be sexually in sync. And with the Mars opposing out of sign with the moon, there's not only being a little out of sync with each other sexually, but also there will be long periods where the feminine partner, the moon partner, is just not going to be feeling it. So there's almost an absence of interest or presence in the marital bed for the moon partner. And with an out of sign trine to the sun, it would give the groom or the solar partner, the masculine partner relationship, a very, very healthy natural sex drive. So that in and of itself could be problematic, especially since we're already, every single one of us, astrologers and non-astrologers, are kind of like, Harry's got a little bit of a wandering eye. And I'm telling you, I think Chelsea Davies is going to be a problem. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned with a vendetta. So yeah, it's going to get messy out there. Messy. So we'll see what pops up in the gossip rags in September, because this will be a prelude to what's going to go down in a few years. That's really going to like rock the marriage. So again, 2 to 4 years. 2 to 4 years. We're looking at big public things with this marriage. So 2-year mark, 4-year mark. And the 4-year mark will pretty much end anything that's going to be ended. So the thing about it is there's a lot of strong things in the chart. I don't necessarily think that they're going to get divorced. I don't think she could divorce this man if she wanted to. And he's not going to divorce her. He's got Moon and Taurus in the 4th house, honey. Once he's bought you, owned you, married you, claimed you, You're not going anywhere. And it literally doesn't matter. He never speaks to you again. You are not going anywhere. So she has officially bought her ticket to an ivory tower. We're going to be revisiting Henry VIII, locking his wives up in the tower, never to leave, forever, forever trapped in a marriage. And that sounds so dark. I'm so sorry. I like Harry. I really like Harry. I like Harry so much I wish he was marrying me. But between the two of them, I think this marriage is going to be problematic for her. And the problem is, I think there's going to be a point where she's going to really want out of this marriage because it's just not working for her the way she expected it to. And she's not leaving. She's not leaving. Honey, you and Henry VIII's wives, you're not going anywhere. So, but we've got a tower we can move you into if you don't want to be here. So there's that. Okay, so, and that's it. This is literally my cold reading, my cold first look at the marriage chart. I will probably maybe do some more later, or if you put some questions down in the comments or comments in the comments down below, we can continue to have this conversation that way, because the one video is enough. One video is enough. So I literally just pulled this chart up this morning to take a look at this marriage chart. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. And there's more here, and I'll add more in the comments when I get there. Yeah, so they're solid. This is a solid marriage. They're good, they're solid. And like I said, the marriage isn't going anywhere. They may hate each other, but the marriage isn't going anywhere. Poor Meghan, right? So Harry benefits, Moon and Taurus in the fourth house. Harry benefits from stability, structure, solidity. Things are predictable and not going anywhere. Harry's going to be fine. Meghan, on the other hand, his first house Leo, his first house Sun. Maybe not so much. Maybe not so much. And she's going to find that it's not, being a princess is not everything she thought it was going to be, or a duchess or whatever. Anyway, so there's that. Fixed stars in this chart are some spicy ones. She's a Spitfire. And again, you can't do that in this particular marriage. Yeah, I know, right? I can't wait to see how this plays out. She is a Spitfire, and in this marriage in particular, one of the things it's going to show is a lot of hot words, hot, spicy words, and a lot of fighting and a lot of arguments coming from the lunar partner, which we're assuming is her. So she is, he's going to be solid as a rock, but she's the one who's going to be like throwing tantrums. Well, that's kind of derogatory. But she's going to be the one who's definitely throwing flames and fire and, having fits and, putting her foot down and stamping and, being resistant and, yada, 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 yada. Because Pollux, you can look it up, Pollux. Pollux is the fixed star conjunct the moon in the marriage chart. So there's going to be some combativeness. No, you won't talk to me like that. I'll do what I want. Like, you'll see a lot of that coming from the lunar partner, which we're assuming is her. Right? Exactly. First house suns. Woo! Yeah. Well, imagine a first house sun that's not allowed to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, when they need to do it. Like, they're very self-directed. They're not interested in other people telling them what they can and can't do. I don't know what this girl was thinking. So let's see what else we got here. And Betelgeuse, Venus. Venus is conjunct Betelgeuse in this chart. And Betelgeuse is a fixed star for wealth. There are many fixed stars for wealth. There are many indicators of wealth. And wealth is relative. What I did consider wealthy is not the same thing as what somebody in, Southern Asia, with living in a jungle hut would think is wealthy. And it's certainly not what somebody living in Switzerland would think is wealthy. So wealth is relative. But Venus at 29 degrees in Gemini is conjunct the fixed star Betelgeuse, which is the fixed star of wealth. So, and it is in the 10th house. Now, it is intercepted in this marriage chart. So Gemini and Sagittarius are intercepted in the marriage chart. So these Venus issues that we're talking about, they're going to pop up in the next 4 weeks. I'm thinking 4 weeks. It won't be 4 days. It could be 4 days, but I'm thinking it's 4 weeks. And the next 4 weeks that are going to come out in the open shortly also have to do with assets and wealth. First house suns. So it will be, I'm going to go back and look up that fixed star. It'll be interesting to see what exactly that is. Now, when Venus moves out of Gemini in the 4 minutes and slides into Cancer, it'll be in a much better position. Mostly because Venus likes being in Cancer. The problem is once it moves into Cancer, it's officially by sign opposing Saturn. So, ooh, money issues are definitely going to be on the table. On the table. I wonder if, right, and Venus is the Almuten ruler of the seventh house. That's got to be Meghan. So if Venus is the Almuten ruler of the seventh house, there's something about her and her assets or her increase in assets that are going to come out into the forefront of awareness in the next 4 weeks. So it's something about money and assets that are really going to like be out there for public scrutiny. But it is opposing, so there should be benefit, but it's opposing Saturn down in that fifth house. So again, Saturn is taskmaster, and Saturn in this particular relationship, in this context, is not a happy place. So there will be a lot of heavy criticism that comes down as a result of this. And because it's involved with fifth house, this is the house of reproduction, children, and pregnancy. Again, I'm not completely sure if she's not pregnant right now. So there's that. Boy, wouldn't people really bring the hammer down about her being a gold digger then, right? You know, people are always quick to get pregnant, you know, if the guy's got money, you know, ooh, he's my soulmate. Wait, is he attractive? Is he wealthy? Because nobody ever said he's my soulmate when he's ugly and broke. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Okay, so that will be interesting to watch to see how that plays out. And then, of course, in the marriage chart, we have the nodes. The north. My camera battery's running low. Bear with me. The north node is in Leo in the 12th house, and the south node is in Aquarius in the 6th house. So the north node in Leo in the 12th house has a lot to do with this marriage being a vehicle for spiritual growth. Unfortunately, when we talk about spiritual growth, there's usually loss that comes with it, because it's through profound loss that we are forced back into our spiritual nature, and only then do we have fertile ground to grow, because we have to get past the ego. We have to break the ego to get into our spiritual stuff. So that is a not great, happy place to have the nodes. And it's in Leo, so it's very much about the heart and love, you know, and finding the deepest, truest, you know, most honest love, not just for ourselves, but for everyone, you know, and the ability to receive love unconditionally. The south node in Aquarius in the 6th house has a lot to do, in a marriage chart, not an individual chart, has a lot to do with robotic performance, you know, kind of going through the motions and, you know, I love humanity, it's the individuals I hate, you know, and that sort of stuff, and kind of being neurotic about principle as opposed to the person. So being authentic is going to be a really big deal, and one of the great purposes for both of them as a result of this marriage. So it'll be interesting to watch. Okay, so now my battery's about to die. I love you guys. So we'll see how this plays out. If you have comments or questions, let's have this conversation down in the comment section, because there's more here. This is literally, you're with me now as I'm cold reading the chart right off the top. I haven't had a chance to study it, so I'm literally reading it to you as I'm looking at it for the first time. So that's the way we roll. Always in a hurry. Okay, bye.